right in reading this. Okay. Open session public meetings are subject to being recorded. Your image and voice may be recorded. And that's it. It's the only thing we had in our mailbox today, the posting for the fire chief position. Anybody wants to take a look at it?
So this is a copy for your reference. This has been posted through the consultant, and the application deadline, I believe, is November 14th. I don't have it in front of me.
It says 14th on the...
14th, thank you.
Do you keep this? No. Sherry is responsible for our files.
Try and get started with the main item is the budget calendar. And I'll look to Kristen for any advice here.
Sure, okay. So I don't have an overly lengthy presentation to give you tonight, but what we've done is I put together a calendar for the 24 budget process, gone over it with June, made sure everybody's on the same page. And even though we are getting started a little bit late, we're going to make up time. So we are going to be back on track. So no concerns there. So just to go through it, and feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions. We did last meet on September 28th to have just a preliminary discussion of this calendar and to have you all get back together in person, kick off the year. We have started the annual employee performance appraisal process. Those performance appraisals are due November 11th. This process will be a bit different for department heads this year, as I was not here last year to assess their performance, and unfortunately I'm not telepathic, so I cannot tell you how they all did. But what we're going to do is we're going to have an open dialogue about goals that were set for FY22, accomplishments that were made, and goals for 23. With the understanding, of course, that sometimes things may get derailed because of other priorities that come up, and I want to have that open dialogue and discussion with the department heads, have the opportunity for them to talk to me, get me a little more familiarized with their departmental operations. I have already sat down one-on-one with all of the department heads, but this will be another great opportunity to dive into the details a bit more and help. They will do a self-evaluation to start that, as is done customarily, and then we will sit down and go over it together. So any questions on the performance appraisal process? We're using the same forms that were previously used, no changes there. All right, and then we will be working on budget forms during the month of October and establishing the preliminary budget guidelines. That'll be a joint effort between myself, June, and you all. And the next time we meet will be the 19th. We'll be talking about budget guidelines. We will do a lot at the next meeting, more so than this one, because we will be not meeting again until I believe we all meet a little bit later on into November. So you all will help with the finalizing of the budget guidelines that we'll be working on in October, and then the capital requests would be the next item that kind of comes up with a deadline. That does come before the actual budget kickoff, because capital has to meet the entire month of November going into December. I did meet with Anna, and she did request, as normal, that all of those requests are in before November so that they can get started on what they need to do. So that call went out, I believe, 2 weeks ago. That was one of the first things I got out so that we can get moving on those. And the deadline to submit is October 31st. So they will be doing their work in November and December on that. On November 2nd, the Personnel Committee will talk about any market adjustments and COLAs that need to be made. This date does need to be reviewed with the Personnel Committee, so this is a draft at this time. And I should note that these dates obviously are subject to change depending on the committees and their availability. And then if all goes according to plan, the following Monday, the Select Board meet and can take their vote on COLAs and market adjustments, so that June has time to do those calculations and we can get them into the budget package. And we can get that package out. November 14th is the goal, with a budget kickoff meeting on November 15th during the day for department heads at 10 a.m. and in the evening at 6 o'clock for any boards and committee members that are able to, or wanting to rather, attend that meeting.
Are these meetings going to be totally in person now?
So there's a choice to be made, and it's something I was actually speaking about today. I'm glad you asked that question. There is a cost to having in-person meetings. Obviously, no offense, Roger, we have to have you come and film, which we like to have you do. But, there is a cost savings by doing the virtual meetings, but I think it's up to the committee whether they would like to have folks come in person, or whether you'd like to do some of them virtual. The hybrid option, I think, as we discussed last time, is really not functional at this time.
That's why I was asking. I didn't know if the other committees or departments.
It's a mix. It really is. Some are still meeting virtually. Some are meeting in person. I would say probably, I want to say we're probably still at the majority doing Zoom at this time, but it's starting to change over as the weeks go on. So it's kind of in a period of transition right now, so it's a little bit difficult to say.
Okay.
So these meetings in November, the hope would be that we could have them, the department head meetings have still been Zoom. So we'll have to see where we're at with COVID and how we want to deal with that. And the board and committee meeting, again, we're going to be right in the middle of fall. I don't know how the situation's going to be there. We'll have to assess it and make that determination at that time. Throughout November and December, I will meet one-on-one with the departments to review their budget requests, go over any supplemental funding requests that they may have based on needs. One thing that June and I were talking about possibly developing, and I obviously don't want to mess with the forms too much, but possibly a supplemental funding request where it's not just a narrative portion where the department requests something in their narrative, but it doesn't get reflected in the financials. So it could actually be a separate sheet where there's a need for the item that's stated. Basically, you state the item, state the need, and state the cost. So that way, if that's something that could be added in, it's more prominently, identified in the package. So that's something we'll be looking at. Otherwise, we've done a preliminary look over the forms. There doesn't seem to be a need to make too many major changes to anything at this time. So I think we'll be moving forward with pretty much the same thing as we had last year, with the potential exception of adding that supplemental form. And then November 16th, if that date works for you folks, to start preliminary budget discussions. November 30th is the deadline to submit FY24 budget requests, revenue estimates, and backup. And the way that process works is the accountant will actually go through, review everything for accuracy, kick back anything that is not accurate or it has missing documents to it, pull everything together, submit it to me. I will review everything and notify if there are any additional things that need to be added, and upload the documents to the shared folder. And I assume, I haven't dug into that folder yet, but you folks all have access to that folder. If not, we'll send it out, get that squared away. And then in December, working on getting the budget spreadsheet out to the board and the FinCom. And this board will be doing the reviews of the budget, meetings with department heads as needed. And then December 14th would be the proposed date for FinCom to begin reviewing the department budget requests. And then the big bulk of the work comes after the holidays, as the calendar had last year, January 4th to March 2023. With the warrant being open during that time for annual town meeting, we're estimating that will be around January 9th. Now I'm in the summer and the winter. There's also the annual reports that have to be submitted in January, so that's kind of a big month there. The deadline to submit annual reports for 2022 is going to be January 31st, and that's as set forth in a policy per the select board.
Excuse me, Kristen, is that, we're not in that deadline, right? That's, FinCom is there because the budget is not at the deadline.
So
that what you
nope, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's
what we-
listed as
March
March 22nd.
Right, March 22nd, 2023
Okay.
would be estimated for your report and final
All right.
budgets. So that's
I could've-
understood that would come later. Yeah, no.
I could have read that.
Sorry
It's
for
right
the
here.
alarm.
Yeah.
Well, I hadn't
Just
gotten to
checking.
it yet, so that's a very fair question. And then February 13th, estimated warrant close date. Obviously, any articles we don't have proposed language and a summary for would not go on the warrant at that time. I can tell you that we do have, at this time, a bulleted list of potential items to go on a warrant. There is no warrant drafted, nothing has, come yet. The reason that we have that list is I inherited it from Margaret in the case of potentially having a fall town meeting. Those items will be bumped to spring, as at this time we're not looking at doing a fall town meeting. And then, looks like February 13th, we're also estimating that would be a financial update. FinCom would jointly meet with the select board. March 1st, FinCom completing feedback for departments and committees. March 8th, FinCom taking final votes to reconsider any budget/warrant articles. And March 15th would be the target date to submit recommendations to the select board for the budget and the financial articles. Also included in this previously, so I left it in there because people have interest obviously in the schools. March 17th is the deadline for the Berlin-Boylston Regional School Committee to adopt their budget. And we're looking at estimated March 22nd, as we mentioned, for FinCom reports and final budgets to be sent to the select board for the annual town report. And March 31st, hopefully we can get that report up on the town website. By April 12th, the goal is to have the annual town meeting warrant and the FinCom report mailed out to each voting household, with having that warrant actually posted by April 24th in time for our May 1st town meeting. So I know that was a lot of information, a lot of dates. If anyone has any questions or wants to go over anything, or if you folks want to discuss some of the dates and see if they work for you.
I know one of the things that was that's missing here, but I don't know if we actually had put in there. Last year, we looked to get a little bit more from the schools at an earlier date. I mean, even though it was very rough, and I don't know if anybody remembers what the date was. I'd have to go back to old notes. I can't remember if it was like
Yeah, I think they
mid-December or December 1st.
Yeah, I've got it. I think they were in front of us in December, Scott.
Yes, they came in front of us in December. I know they have great resistance to it because they have so much unknown, but we also know that there is a lot known at that point too, to give us a heads up.
Are you talking about the schools?
Yes. Instead of us finally, seeing the first thing from, the biggest part of the entire town budget is coming from the schools, and, getting that in February and seeing how that...
I remember, don't you do a preliminary presentation in, was it like late November or early December?
Well, I think that was part of it from a push from the finance committees.
Yeah, we asked
But,
for it.
but,
Yes.
but we went to, but I went with Margaret to, was it at Tohoto?
Yes.
For one of them, where they present, where it was the school board presenting.
Yes.
We attended, as opposed to them coming here and presenting to us.
Yeah, I don't think it matters where the location is, but
No, they
that's-
were presenting though to the community at large.
Right.
It wasn't just to the Berlin FinCom.
I can look into that.
Yeah.
But if you wanted them to come before you in December, I presume that December 14th meeting would be the one that you're
Mhm.
targeting, since that's the
Yeah.
only set one, if you will, if that date works for you.
They presented here on the 15th of December last
Oh.
year. So, and they had, the basic outlines of
So I can certainly reach out now, if that works with that date, so they can start planning and say, could you please appear
Exp-
and come on?
Especially since they have a new finance person that
Yeah.
wasn't, that will not remember that.
They have lots new going on.
Yes.
Facilities director over there too, who happens to come from my old stomping grounds as well.
Oh, wow.
So, yep. Dan Ayala, great guy.
You mentioned the full budget folder access. Do we,
Yes.
have you created a new folder that's for
So
23?
within- I started an FY '24 folder. I'm not sure if it's within the folder that you're normally used to accessing. I'll have to check on that. I can work with Mary and make sure that I'm putting things.
I'm
the
in
right
my
place.
folder and I don't have it.
Okay, so maybe I'm in the wrong location.
You don't see a 24 on there?
No, I
You see 20
actually don't even see 22, but that doesn't mean anything. But there it is right there, and I dump everything in there, so
Kristen, sometimes it's-
I don't have a new one, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then
Right. Did you see
we'll know
23 though?
exactly where we're-
Nope,
No, you don't see any of them.
no, for some reason, I just see that one.
Which one is
Can I
that?
take a
21.
look at which one you're in?
But can she share it to, it's an old one, obviously, but can you email it to us?
Sure, I was just gonna see which one you're in though, so I can,
This is the one I have, but I mean, that doesn't
oh, that's
mean.
just the 21 budget,
Yeah.
okay.
Well,
So why don't I
have old
create?
budget, and for some reason, none of them are showing up.
Okay. Let
It
me
could
look
be
into
me,
the
I'm
old ones.
technology challenged.
Nope, that's okay. I'll send out a link.
Thank you.
Sure.
I was looking at these dates.
So, got your name on a fiscal '23 budget, you can see there in my Google
I
Docs.
don't
And that's
understand
shared
which
with
ones
you.
are ours.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's fiscal
Because none of
'23.
I
them
went
on
into
Wednesdays.
23 and started pulling some docs
Did we
from
change
there
our
to
day?
create 24, so I'm not sure why.
I mean,
Maybe it's just because I created 24 and I haven't shared it
19th.
yet.
Is there, I got the 19th.
Yeah, I mean,
And then the 19th.
This is a Wednesday. I have my calendar, so November 16th is Wednesday.
I think this might have been.
November
something Margaret
7th
did
is
before
not a
we got
Wednesday.
something from Margaret's on
Yeah, but that's not for us. That's
I
the,
was-
Well, that's what I'm
the
trying to figure out.
select board.
How do we
I was
figure out
in
which ones are
there
for us?
Because I was
That's
trying
what
to
it says,
pull
FinCom.
over items
Oh,
to
thank you.
copy
No
over for
problem.
24, so that's probably how my name ended up on.
Well, for whatever reason,
This
it's
is a little
showing up
bit, because
visible in my
Myra
Google
gave us
Doc with
just
the
Okay.
fiscal '23 budget.
That's why I was like.
So I will
why
do the
is
same thing for
Gotcha.
24,
Sorry,
make sure
sorry,
everybody
sorry,
has access and
sorry.
send out that like I
it- Don't
did.
mind me.
It's like a puzzle.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I think they were all in my phone, that's why I was.
Trying to remember, in the budget kickoff meetings, did we attend any of them last year? I know, like, obviously the morning one, I would never be there, but
Yeah, I was not able to attend, I can tell you.
I think we were invited, Scott, and I don't think any of us showed.
yeah, I don't recall being there for any of them.
You're most certainly welcome to attend.
How long do they typically last?
That is a great question. I can't tell you historically. I don't know if anyone has been to one. I can find out.
I'm only used to way back before we had a TA, and the Finance Committee had to do everything. So we ran that particular meeting then.
Uh-huh.
And I'm just wondering, if there was a need to or wanted to attend it, and since we actually have a scheduled meeting the very next day, I know that's a Tuesday, would it make sense to do a meeting, just move the 16th to the 15th
Mm.
and have a regular meeting time, attend that and then just move into a meeting right after that?
Rather than have it two separate nights for the similar.
The one question would be obviously at 6 o'clock. I'm not sure of other people's availability on the board.
I can't meet on Tuesdays, I already have
Okay.
a weekly commitment on Tuesdays.
All right.
My understanding of the budget kickoff meeting, what I have typically done is go through the package that's put together. So you're talking less than an hour, depending on questions.
All right, I think the fact that Janet won't be able to make it on Tuesday, we'll just keep our meeting as is.
Keep the 16th.
Yeah.
Well, technically, we're supposed to go there and learn about how to ask for our $75 for training or whatever it is we do, or that organization we belong to, or
Yeah.
Massachusetts Finance Committee organization, so.
Well, since we've never done it, we should probably go and ask how to do it.
Ask because we don't seem to
Because
get it done.
we don't seem to get it done.
Oh, it's $175.
That bill came, right? We put through,
We
I
just
think,
paid
the
it.
bill,
Yes,
so
yes.
we paid it.
We
yeah.
paid them.
Yeah,
Your
money well
members.
spent. It's definitely money well spent every year.
Do we have any ideas when it comes to COLAs, what people are talking about right now, or is it considering, I know again, past history, it has changed. Past history was taking off what inflation was, and now, obviously that, I don't even know what what's the consumer price index at now, looking
40,
at.
50.
Insane. Yeah, it's, so I've only met with personnel once. They are meeting next week, so we'll be having those preliminary discussions then. It hasn't come up yet, honestly.
Yeah, I've only known 1 year when it was ridiculous, and that was like back in 2009 or so, and it was, because we were just using what Social Security was using, it was over 4% back then because the gas prices were up high. And of course, it was a anomaly because of kind of like everything was in commodities, and like the next 2-3 years it was zero. Of course, everybody on Social Security was complaining about not getting changes, but it all worked out well in the long run. But obviously, things are a little different now.
Well, and one thing to keep in mind too, and I've just started to look into this, but I understand, everything was budgeted very conservatively, and there were cuts made to the operating budget because of COVID during the COVID years. I think my recommendation would be to restore to pre-COVID levels, especially in light of inflation. And I think that restore, and in some areas there may need to be a small addition to reflect what you're talking about, which is consumer price index and inflation. And I mean, you just look at the cost of groceries for one thing, for example, and meat. It is really unbelievably challenging for folks.
So I pulled up the CPI, Scott, for the 12 months ending August of 2022. On average, seasonally adjusted, the CPI rose 8.3%. And with energy, they have split out. Energy is 25% of that time frame. Food is about 12. Other items about 8. So, well, actually, if you take out food and energy, the CPI is up for everything else about 6%, 5 to 6%.
Yeah, I mean, this is unique from, like I said, last time I saw it being large, it was almost exclusively energy. I think it was from 2008 or 2009, right in that time frame, before the recession hit. And well, then we didn't have to worry about it for a while because everything had gone up there, and like I said, it was zero for I think the next 3 budgets. So.
So the September CPI data are out tomorrow, or just a day too early for the fresh stuff, fresh news. I don't think it's
Look
going to
at
drop
here, I
much.
got this.
We could be looking at double digit.
I got the 22
I can't
now.
say
Well, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
I
interrupt.
apologize.
No. I was just gonna say, I can say one thing about electricity that is positive, and I did meet with the Energy Committee last week. As most of you probably know, but it's always good to put this information out there for folks who may be watching. Berlin is part of community electricity aggregation through National Grid. It's still a National Grid bill, but the supply actually comes from NextEra through Colonial Power, and that is a fixed rate through November of 2024. So National Grid, oil, energy, they're talking, in some places I've seen 60% increases discussed. That would not affect the majority of residents on the electricity side because that is locked in. And that was an automatic opt-in process unless you opted out, because that was voted on at town meeting. So if you want to know if you're in the program, if you look at your National Grid bill, and it's usually on the back where it's the supply portion of the bill, it should say NextEra on it. And then you'll know that you're in the program and you're locked in at that rate through 2024. And if you're not, you can opt in. It's information on the website, right on the homepage, on how to opt into the program.
You said X through November 24? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
What are you looking for on the bill?
So on the back,
back?
usually on the back side, so there's the distribution charge and then there's a supply charge. So it's actually just the supply that should say where it's coming from, the NextEra power supplier, because National Grid still does the actual poles, utilities, distribution of the energy. You're actually just buying the energy from someone else. And that was a fixed rate because you go in as a large purchasing unit when you put all residents in together. So you're actually able to get a better bulk rate. And thank goodness that happened before everything going on. Unfortunately, that doesn't help for oil, but at least it can provide some comfort on the electric side. And there's actually a mailer that's going to be sent out, I believe, starting on Friday to residents. We spoke with Colonial Power this week. It's going to remind them of the program and let them know how to opt in if they're not in the program already.
You know, it's early to talk about who would be on or when we start reviewing budgets, but I know historically December has been having the emergency services, and I think this year probably want to again definitely make sure that fire is first, since I think the uncertainty about who would be the head once we go past the new year. So I don't know if you want to give him a heads up that
You'd like fire on the 14th?
yes. Anybody have any objection to that?
No, he was happy to come early last year.
Yeah. We can say our goodbyes.
Yes, he does intend to retire at the end of the year. He has agreed to stay a week or two if needed during the transition, but we don't want to keep him along too much. He deserves to go off and have his retirement.
Okay, and what, at least from the finance committee standpoint, what do you want from us for the next meeting? I know we're only meeting, we're meeting next week. You're working on the budget guidelines.
Yes, I am. So I believe June, and I don't know if everybody has a copy or brought it with them. June had handed out a copy of last year's budget form, instructions and guidelines. And that's what we'll be basing it off of. I do happen to have one extra copy here if somebody is in need.
Did she bring those last time?
She did.
I thought we had them.
Yep, but I don't know, not everybody was here.
Yeah.
I wasn't here.
Let me get you one.
I'm sorry.
No, no problem at all.
Thank
I knew
you.
I had an extra copy for a reason. So if you want to look through these documents, like I said, I've started reviewing them and I don't see any major significant changes. Obviously, the budget messages will be updated. And there is, let me just see here, budget instructions that come from the finance committee. We go in about 4 or 5 pages. So that's a letter that's written by FinCom. If you want to take a look at that for the next meeting and start thinking about how you want to write that for this year, that would be very helpful. And then I will bring updated forms with me, so we can go
Right.
through them. But if you have changes and you want to look at last year's as a basis and make any recommendations on that for the next meeting next week, that would be great.
Yeah, unfortunately, the last 2 years, we're both just don't spend any money. So. don't know if we, how much we can use that as a basis for this year.
Yeah, we have a bold underline, not more
Yeah.
than 2.5%
Uh-huh.
over the fiscal '22 amounts.
Yeah. it's-
We were rather bold.
Very bold.
Yes.
I don't know either if June, and I can't remember if she mentioned this at the last meeting, and I apologize, it's a little bit off track, but the legal budget, has she brought that up for you folks?
She did.
She did bring that up, okay. That there is likely need for reserve fund transfer in the legal budget in the upcoming months. There's just been a number of legal matters that have needed guidance from council. Not an overuse, just literally a high volume.
So we need the budget instructions to be finished. Well, actually, this was dated November 16th, way back in '21. But they would need to be really available by the budget kickoff meeting, right?
Yeah.
All right, and next week's our only meeting for us between that, till then, okay.
Okay, so after next meeting, we won't need to meet again until November unless something comes up? Is that,
That would be the goal unless you
Yes.
folks want to meet for any purpose in the interim. Because what's gonna happen is this is all gonna get finalized based on your feedback and the updates I'm gonna be working on the next week. And then we're going to be pulling it all together with information and data from personnel, completing the numbers and getting the package out, having that budget kickoff meeting.
Okay, so we'll make sure we get the budget instructions finished at the next meeting.
Great. And if need be too, we could always have a second meeting at the beginning of November. I'm not sure if there is that need, but November the 26th, unfortunately, I am away. Well, of course, I'm more than welcome to meet. If you wanted to have me there the 2nd, I would be available if we needed to schedule another meeting. Because this is a bit different than, as you noted, that it has been for the past 2 years. So, and June is literally this afternoon, just finished the draft recap sheet. So I'm just getting that information fresh, so I don't have any numbers for you, unfortunately, at this point, but I will for you next week. At least starting to get a preliminary idea of where we're headed.
In fiscal '23.
Yep, so looking at free cash.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it looks like we will have a good, healthy number in free cash based on just the preliminary report that I got this afternoon, but I haven't taken a detailed dive into it yet.
Scott, do you want to take a shot at any conversation about budget instructions at this meeting? Or do you want to try to do it all next time?
We can, if there's any suggestions that may have early on. It's typically been just a one-page. And some of that stuff is real simple. Does everybody have it in front of them? You have yours?
No, but I
I mean, obviously, the simple part from going from the bottom up is the, the budget request deadline. I think we can fill that in easily
Yeah,
enough.
the date bits are easy.
Exactly. And the budget presentations and the budget kickoff. So really, I mean, at least from the past, it's been about a, was that a 3 or 4 sentence paragraph? But I think right now, though, it's from that paragraph, it's going to be the more seeing what June numbers are to really have an idea.
I was just gonna say, it looks, as I'm kind of diving into this and looking at the dates, these were finalized at least in November. We will have a lot more information at that time, including local receipt estimates. So it's, might be easier, and I don't know, there wasn't one listed, perhaps you did have one in November and it just didn't make it onto the calendar from last year. But I don't, might be easier to have a little bit more information for you folks before you go blindly into, you know, to write the letter.
Yeah, we apparently had a town administrator process memo, because we said we're gonna echo that, so there was.
Right.
Yep,
I think
okay.
there were some dire instructions in that said, don't even think about spending more money this year.
Okay.
Just to,
Yeah, there was
You need-
just,
You need some guidance and a
yeah, there
frame
was
of
just,
reference.
exactly,
Yeah.
you're right. I mean, it's like we do need to have some numbers and some general idea there. And, I mean, maybe it does make sense that we need a meeting either on the 2nd or the
Mhm.
9th.
I wasn't
Right,
here, but
and with the transition,
reading
you
this
know,
and
as I
thinking,
mentioned, we
what
are a
more
little
do we
bit
have to
delayed.
fix?
A little bit delayed on getting the
November
recap
30th
done,
is
which,
deadline.
you know,
Sure.
informs free cash, and I am at the start
that
of week
should be the
4, so
15th.
we're getting there. But
So
3 weeks
Tuesday the
under my
15th,
belt
right?
here, so
Mhm.
I'm basically all budget all the time for the next
yeah.
week at least, and then most of the rest of the time as well.
So should we just pencil in a meeting then for the 9th?
I think you
Would
may
that be?
need-
November 9th.
What's-
November 9th?
Yeah, I know that's a Wednesday. The 11th, that Friday is Veterans Day.
No.
So I don't know
Yeah.
if there's any, I would have any,
So he's got the 9th?
yes. So go with the 9th?
Yeah, I don't have anything yet.
All right. Julie, you're our official poster for that?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
for this one, are you posting all of these from the calendar, the budget calendar?
The FinCom meetings themselves,
Yeah.
is that something that you guys have posted in the past, or the town
Well,
administrators posted, or?
Margaret, I think Margaret did it before. I'm just asking because if you're gonna do all these scheduling, then I won't worry about it. Otherwise, I can ask Mary specifically for the FinCom ones and for the Zoom link that we talked about.
Oh, that's right, because we talked about the Zoom,
Because
yeah.
we would have the alternative, if anything came up, we could still meet and stay on track.
Yeah, I can work with Mary to get these set up. There aren't
Well-
that many that
Oh,
should
that would be
an
great
issue.
then.
Sure.
November 16th is already scheduled.
Yes, unfortunately, it's after the budget kickoff meeting, we'll need that letter to be done.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, to let you know that everything
Okay.
before the 16th back is already scheduled.
Okay.
I don't know who did them, that's all I was,
Oh, interesting.
I think these were just, they just
Additional
adjusted the
agendas.
dates, kind of going from last year's.
Okay.
So what we really need to do with our instructions is work on that first paragraph, and the rest of it is pretty
Yeah.
good dates.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
It might seem only one paragraph, but that paragraph sets a tone for
and
a lot.
Clearly, we're gonna be talking about COLAs and CPIs.
Yes.
Um,
Well, and then just general, I mean, we've kept the expense line items very tight, and that could be be interesting to see what people's expectations are on their expenses too, just from things that they used to buy at a certain price.
I anticipate the expenses are where you're gonna see some challenges, you know, particularly if there's not some movement to go back to your pre-COVID levels in light of inflation. I mean, the budgets, excuse me, are pretty razor thin on the expense side particularly, from what I've been hearing and speaking with department heads.
speaking to who?
Department heads.
Department heads.
All right. Anybody else have anything, any questions on the calendar or comments?
So I'll get the Zoom link and figure out the bookings for the 19th and the 9th. And then we've got the one in December as well, and November.
All right, did you have anything more for us, Kristen?
This evening, I do not.
All right. I'm turning
Is it
over to
my
Janet.
turn?
Yes, it'd be your
You
turn.
need-
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, at 8:17, thank you.
I got to do it last week, Jim. That was exciting.
Who got to do it last time? You did? Oh.
So-